Good afternoon, Professor. My name is Yadira Kando. My topic vary enclosure during endotracheal intubation. Definition. Int is a medical procedure in the which the tube is placed in the weapon through the mouth or nose. In the most emergency situation is a place through in the mouth. Continue my video.
As we grapple with supply problems, a Taiwanese anesthesiologist recently shared the design of a reusable protective device to reduce droplet and aerosol exposure during airway management. This aerosol box is a plastic transparent cube designed to cover a patient's head with two orifices to insert the hands while performing a procedure. We took an aerosol box prototype to our simulation center to examine its protective qualities. To simulate a cough and evaluate the spread of droplets and aerosols, we used a small latex balloon filled with 10 cc's of fluorescent dye placed in a mannequin's hypopharynx. The dye contains small particles invisible to ordinary light and clings to any type of surface. The balloon was inflated with oxygen through tubing inside the mannequin until it exploded, simulating a forceful cough. A laryngoscopist covered with a gown, surgical mask with eye shield, and surgical hat stood at the head of the mannequin with his hands inside the box. We repeated the experiment without and with the box, and then illuminated the scene with ultraviolet light to visualize the spread of the dye. The simulated cough expelled the fluorescent dye through the mannequin's mouth. The laryngoscopist, who was positioned above the mannequin's head, was contaminated on his face mask, eye shield, neck, ears, and arms. There was contamination of the room floor several feet away from the head of the bed and on a monitor located over 6 feet away from the mannequin. After the experiment without the box, the room was cleaned, the PPE replaced, and the experiment repeated with the box positioned over the mannequin's head. The simulated cough resulted only in contamination of the inner surface of the box and the laryngoscopist's hands and forearms. Ultraviolet light examination of the laryngoscopist and the room showed no contamination outside of the box.
Application is the nursing. 1. A healing of the mouth with the mouth was of the nose, which silences the hydrated the legs with petroleum heat every 8 hours or more is the needed. 2. Change the fixation of the support of points of the two to be periodically evaluate the cavity. 3. Mark the level of the lead commissioners of the tube with mark. 4. Check the tire pressure in the tunnel tapping that should be around 20 cmg. 5. Check the tube position in the turn ausculti but low field. 6. Because exactly in the word necessity. 7. Manipulate to the in the different manner with street the sexy. Continue my video.
So we're going to introduce the laryngoscope into the mouth just like normal, and trying to find epiglottis. And you're trying to get the best view of the glottis you could find. But even if you just find epiglottis, you will be able to intubate this patient. That's a Cormac-Lehane grade 3 view. once you find epiglottis, what you're going to do is you're just going to ride the epiglottis with your bougie. So you're just going along the underside of the epiglottis with your bougie. And if you're doing that, you will enter glottis and you will be in the trachea. And that's the key. Now, how do you know you're in? Well, there's two ways that are described. The first one is you could actually feel the tracheal rings. And you'll feel the tip of that bougie, that coude tip, rubbing against the tracheal rings. For me, sometimes I feel it, sometimes I don't. What I keep doing is I keep pushing the bougie forward very gently, and eventually, if you're in the tracheobronchial tree, you'll get holdup. Either you'll hit the carina or one of the branches of the main stem bronchi, and the bougie won't go any further. It'll stop at about 40 centimeters. If you're in the esophagus, on the other hand, it'll keep going. You could place that thing all the way to its hilt. So that's how you know. And once you've confirmed by holdup that point of the bougie stopping, you just withdraw until you're at about 25, and then you'll put the tube onto the bougie. Now for this, you really want a partner. It's really tough to do yourself because one of the key mistakes that's made is taking the laryngoscope out of the mouth. You want to leave the laryngoscope in the mouth to keep those posterior pharyngeal structures from collapsing on your bougie. So you have an assistant place the tube over the bougie, hold the top of the bougie, and this now allows you to advance the endotracheal tube through the cords. Just given the shape of the endotracheal tube, oftentimes it'll hold up on some of the cartilage, or it'll just get caught on the cords. What you want to do is just rotate the tube counterclockwise 90 degrees, and then gently go back and forth and rotate ever so slightly, and eventually the tube will pass. As long as you're gentle, you're not going to cause any airway trauma. If you try to jam this thing in, that's when you run into problems. So eventually the tube will start passing. You go into about 22 or 23, take out your laryngoscope, you take out your bougie, and you confirm your endotracheal tube.
Pro and the cons. Monitor tube displacement. Check the concept permeability of the endotracheal tube. Evaluate the cubitus bite ruined the tube and the flex type. Mobilize the endotracheal tube and the tapped every 24 hours. Perform oral hygiene with antiseptic every 8 hours. Wash aspiration on the security if necessary. Avoid dry lip by applying a protector. Continue my video.
Now we will see how we check endotracheal tube before use. Initially, look for any physical damage like missing parts or kinking. Now look for obstructions. For a PVC transparent endotracheal tube, simple observation should be enough. But if it is a red rubber tube where it is not transparent, we have to look through both lumen, even use a stiletto to see that there are no foreign bodies inside the tube. Next step is to check the cuff. You can inflate the cuff with a cuff inflating syringe. You will be observing for even distribution of cuff inflation. Also, we have to see whether the cuff herniates into the lumen of the tube. Now, to check for the slow leak, keep it inflated for 1 minute. Remember, you have to disconnect the inflating syringe and wait for 1 minute. After 1 minute, if everything is fine, you keep the cuff completely deflated before use. If you have got the cuff pressure manometer, you can use it to inflate the cuff as well as to regulate the inflating pressure of the cuff. Here you can see the green zone indicating cough pressure. Again, disconnect, wait for 1 minute to look for slow leaks. If acceptable, deflate the cuff completely. Remember, after opening from the sterile pack, you do not handle the patient end of the endotracheal tube. You will be handling only the machine end of the tube, and you have to attach the connector firmly before laryngoscopy and insertion into the trachea.
This is a play in the Ecuador. In Ecuador, 4 painted white endotracheal intubation have been registered. The daily anesthesiology fades the channel on the prediction things in the incumbent in the well half which the everywhere. The fig for endotracheal intubation increases the risk of the mortality and the mortality. Is the pains undergoing anesthesis procedures preparative in the identification of the pain was possibly present and the risk and intubation without the anesthesiology. Be alert and the preparing and the plot both is the education of the personnel is on the roster of the correct and the adequate management of the difficult airways and the prevent result negative. Continue my video.
This is the position we get the patient in before we intubate. So we try to flex at the lower cervical spine, so down at C6-7, flex forward, and then extend at C1-2. And this is known as the sniffing position. And you have to adjust that pillow under the head, sometimes underneath the shoulders, to lift the shoulders to improve the extension to get a good airway. You should always have something under the head. One of the fallacies of people who don't intubate frequently is that they throw the pillow across the room to get it out of the room, and then an anesthesiologist has to come in and put it back and intubate the patient. The laryngoscope is placed on the right side of the mouth, avoiding touching the teeth. It pulls the tongue to the midline and it's lifted. It's never, ever do you turn your wrist when you're doing this. You put the laryngoscope in and you lift. And the lifting lifts the tongue and the mandible and allows the cords to be seen. And you can see in this example, the cords are very easy to see. And that's a dream intubation. That's going to be very easy to do. So in this situation, you can see how difficult you can make things by positioning the patient incorrectly. In the picture on the left, the patient doesn't have a pillow. I just finished mentioning how important that is, but you can see what's happened here is the neck's too flexed. The lower part of the neck is kind of pushed forward and you can't get good atlanto-occipital extension. In the second picture, it's better, and there should be a fairly straight line from the mouth down the airway, and you can see in the third picture, there's a fairly good view, but it could be argued that this is too extended, that they've extended the whole neck rather than just the atlanto-occipital area. So the Macintosh blade, the curved blade, should be positioned anterior to the epiglottis in the vallecula, that's the base of the tongue, and should not contact the epiglottis. The Miller blade, the straight blade, on the other hand, actually lifts the epiglottis, and you can see that in the picture to the right of the Macintosh blade. It actually lifts the epiglottis, and there's some hemodynamic changes that can occur when you do that, particularly vagal stimulation, so you can get bradycardia and things that I'd just as soon avoid, so I don't use a straight blade.
You just completed your first video of the world's best
Conclusion. Endotracheal intubation is of degree important since in the mere positive the exchange of the gas, the problems that our living organism suffer, thus helping to decrease mortality in the patients with respiratory problems. I continue my video.
Ensure that the equipment is prepared and check that the laryngoscope is working and the cuff on the tube inflates and deflates properly.
Conclusion. Endotracheal intubation is of degree important since it is the make positive the exchange of the gas, the problems that our living organisms suffer, thus helping to decrease mortality in the patients with respiratory problems. Continue my video.
Ensure that the equipment is prepared and check that the laryngoscope is working and the cuff on the tube inflates and deflates properly. Pre-oxygenate the patient with bag and mask ventilation for up to 1 minute before attempting to intubate. Standing behind the patient with the head in the sniffing the morning air position, with the left hand, insert the curved blade of the laryngoscope into the mouth over the right side of the tongue, displacing it to the left and upwards. Advance the laryngoscope slightly until the tip of the epiglottis can be seen posterior to the back of the tongue. Advance the tip of the laryngoscope blade into the vallecula between the epiglottis and the tongue. With the handle of the laryngoscope pointing away from you at 45 degrees, lift upwards and away to lift up the tongue and epiglottis to display the vocal cords and the laryngeal opening. With the right hand, insert the endotracheal tube from the right-hand side of the mouth directly between the cords and into the trachea until the cuff passes through the cords. The markings on the tube at the incisors will show between 21 and 24 centimeters in the average-sized adult when the tube is in position. Remove the laryngoscope and inflate the cuff with approximately 15 mL of air to prevent air leaking during ventilation. Attach the tube to the bag and valve apparatus and ventilate the patient with the oxygen flow on 12 to 15 liters per minute. Confirm the position of the tube by auscultating over the apices of the lungs, the axillae and the stomach. If it is not in the correct position, deflate the cuff and remove the tube. Resort back to bag and mask ventilation and repeat the intubation process from the beginning. If the tube is in too far, the right lung will be ventilated only via the right main bronchus. If this occurs, deflate the cuff and withdraw the tube 2 to 3 centimeters. Re-inflate the cuff and recheck the position. When the tube is in the correct position, tie it in place with cotton tape and attach the tube to the ventilating apparatus and ventilate the patient.
Thank you, Prophet.